Okay, so good morning, everyone. Welcome. Just going to do a little bit of housekeeping tools, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Um, we do have a chat option. I've already went ahead and put a welcome message on there. If at any time during the presentation you have a question, feel free to go ahead and put your question in there. We will be answering the chat, and from time to time start stopping and asking kind of questions and answering those questions as well as at the end. We also ask that you please keep your mics on mute so that we can hear the presenters. We are recording this webinar, and we will be giving you an uploaded version of this webinar. So don't worry, the content will be available to all of you. Let me go ahead and welcome you all this morning to Survive and Thrive. It's SBA's Disaster Preparedness and Recovery for Businesses in South Florida, and actually North Florida. This is a joint event between North and South Florida. It is being hosted by the Puerto Rican Chamber, the Puerto Rican Summit. And it's a great honor for us here at the SBA, both North and South, to speak about our programs today with you all. We do want to take a moment and thank each and every person that is here with us today. A special thanks to our hosts for allowing us to contribute content and programming that is so important to us here in Florida. During today's event, we can ask, like I mentioned, everyone's mics and cameras. We're going to go ahead and leave those off. There'll be Q&A, so do not worry. So I guess let me go ahead and introduce myself. Let's go ahead to go to the next slide, Ed. My name is Aileen Fernandez. I'm with the South Florida District Office. I'm joined by my colleague, Ed Ramos or Jose Ramos, with the SBA North Florida District Office. And like I mentioned, we cover the entire state between Ed and I. And we have different district offices and territories, including Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, all over the U.S. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ed. So I don't know what else potentially Ed wants to also introduce himself, and then we can go ahead and start on slide 3.
Thank you, Arlene. Can you hear me?
I can, Ed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I seem to have a little bit of trouble with my slides. So can you tell me which page?
Right now, we're on the first page where it says Survive and Thrive.
Mm-hmm.
If not, I can also queue up my slides if you need me to.
Okay, please, because I'm trying to
move them and they're not moving.
Okay. Yeah, move up to the next slide and it doesn't allow me to do so.
Just bear with me one little second.
Okay, so while Aline does that, thank you to all of you who are in attendance today. My name is Ed Ramos, and I'm a senior area manager assigned to the SBA North Florida office. And with me, as you heard today, is Aline Fernandez, outreach and marketing specialist with the SBA South Florida office. We cover the entire state of Florida, and we have district offices in all states, territories, and possessions, including Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. So if you're not in Florida, please get in touch with us later on, and we'll give you the contact for the district office that services your location where you are residing or your business is located. And Aline mentioned that these presentation will be made available to the summit for anyone interested in getting copies. You can email me, and Aline will make a copy available through the to the participants through the SBA YouTube channel, and the Puerto Rican Chamber will probably upload it a few days later to their own YouTube channel. So can we go to slide 3, please?
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that you guys have a good view of the slides. Okay. Can you see the slides, Ed?
I just stopped sharing mine. Can I see yours?
Let me reboot it. Let me go ahead and reboot it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you see them now?
I can see. Yes. Can someone else tell us in the chat if they can see the slide? Yeah, I can see it now. Yes.
Okay.
Can
All
you go
right.
full screen, please?
I am trying. Let me see. Actual size. It's actually acting a little wonky because I apologize for to it. I don't know why it's showing up like this, but is that better?
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
Thank you.
awesome. You see, it's showing in a
So,
different. Okay.
so we can see my smiley face and Eileen's smiley face, so we can go to the next slide. Okay, thank you. So every year, the state of Florida is impacted by a multiple of disasters from hurricanes to floods, freezes, droughts, severe storms, tornadoes, and wildfires. And speaking of wildfires, our hearts go out to the people in California impacted by the recent fires, and we hope that with collaboration between the state of California, FEMA, and the SBA, they can recover and minimize the emotional and financial strain from this particular disaster. As the slide indicates, in the last 44 years, from a period of 1980 through 2024, in Florida, there have been 94 confirmed weather and disaster climate events with average losses exceeding $1 billion for disasters. So those disasters are pretty significant for both individuals and businesses. Next slide, please. So SBA, as a federal agency, we were established in 1953, and the Congress gave us a mission to assist small businesses and also to help individuals, families, and businesses recover after disaster. And this is all spelled out in the Small Business Act. And at the beginning of 2025, so that you know, SBA was actively involved in 17 disaster declarations with 168 counties and parishes. Current operations are still on the ground supporting 6 presidential disasters, including the response to Hurricane Helene and Milton in Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia. In response to the wildfires in California, we continue to support with disaster lending. A major declaration was issued early January, January 8th, and we have over 100 SBA disaster staff on the ground, including customer service reps to help individuals who need assistance completing their applications, and public information officers that work with the state and local to ensure that the impacted individuals are aware of the SBA role and the fact that they can apply for disaster assistance programs through the SBA, just like they do with the Federal Emergency Management Agency. We're also ensuring that we have bilingual support. We coordinate with FEMA and the state of California on the disaster recovery centers and mobile registration intake centers, and we work with the FEMA disaster survivor assistance teams to make sure that they have shelter available for those individuals that were displaced. The SBA disaster team is also has responded to the New Year's tragedy in New Orleans at the request of the Louisiana governor. The impacted small businesses can now apply for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. Next slide. So SBA doesn't work alone. We're not the only agency that gets involved whenever there's a disaster. We depend on local community, local government, and other federal agencies to help individuals, families, nonprofits, and businesses prepare for that eventual disaster. And yes, the private sector has a significant role helping as well. This list that you can see on the screen shows some of the players that get involved at the city, county, state, federal, and private sector in the preparation phase by sharing educational materials, doing presentations, training the trainers, building alliances, and creating awareness with local governments so that the support and necessary tools and funding is reserved and budgeted. We try to front load information, knowledge, and tools that may be needed during an emergency, but although we do this every year, we find that every time there's a disaster, we have people that fail to prepare. If I leave with you one thing today is that you as a individual business owner, head of a family, you need to have a go bag. where you put not only your clothes and food and beverage, but also your medications, important personal and business papers, your last will and testament, your home and vehicle deed and title, and anything else you may need if you evacuate out of your home or your business due to a disaster. We can talk about this in more detail in another session if you let us know, because if you run a business, you want to make sure that your financial records and information about your clients is not lost during a disaster. Next slide, please. Getting close to home, this slide here shows and summarizes the information we share during the uh, Hurricane Helene last year. Every time we issue a disaster declaration, the document the that we call the disaster declaration identifies the primary counties impacted by the disaster. In this case, those that suffer physical damage are shown here in the first paragraph. The document also identifies surrounding counties, we call them contiguous counties, that were impacted indirectly. Substantial economic injury means the business is unable to meet its financial obligations and pay its regular and necessary operating expenses due to the disaster. The disaster declaration identifies the counties that are eligible for economic injury as well as physical damage loans, and it's open to excuse me, individuals, businesses, and private nonprofits that are based in those counties that are impacted. The economic injury disaster loan can go up to $2 million if the application supports that amount. So the SBA will review the documentation and the financial documentation that is submitted along with the package, and they will make a determination. $2 million is the maximum amount supported by the EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan. Impacted individuals can use the QR code that you can see towards the middle lower part and the right side of the screen to connect to the SBA application or to go to sba.gov/disaster to start on their application. If they need assistance, the Disaster Customer Service Center is always available. That number is 1-800-659-2955. Or they can visit the closest recovery center if there's one that has been activated to get face-to-face assistance. Unfortunately, the regular SBA district staff plays only a minor role, and we function as traffic cops directing people to the resources, and we don't get involved with processing or approving disaster loans. That's something that we see every disaster that people come to us thinking that because we have the SBA logo, we are the same as the disaster people, but the function is divided. Disaster has a specific mission and we have a specific mission, and we try not to encroach on each other. Next slide. The same information that I show in the previous slide applies to Hurricane Milton. Each disaster is unique on who is impacted, and the disaster declaration becomes super important to ensure only eligible and impacted entities can apply for assistance. If you were impacted by both Helene and Milton, you can apply under the first one, and the damage assessment team will estimate the loan amounts until a maximum ceiling of $2 million for businesses and private nonprofits, $500K for homeowners, and up to $100,000 for renters and personal property. Again, you can use the QR code to visit the disaster lending site so that you can submit an application and get more information on the assistance that is available to you. Next slide, please. This page addresses the amounts available today for physical damage loans. Note that the application deadlines for these loans for Hurricanes Helene and Milton closed 60 days after the disaster declaration was issued. In many cases, the SBA extends the date 1 or 2 weeks, but the dates for both of these types of loans have already closed. The loans can be written for up to 30 years with low fixed interest rates, with no payments for the first 12 months, and with the ability to request up to a 20% increase for mitigation money to prevent future disasters from damaging the property or businesses. And that includes wind shutters, generators, et cetera, et cetera. Next slide, please. This slide addresses the economic injury disaster loan, or as we call it, the EIDL. EIDL. And we love acronyms at the federal level. We can write a loan as an EIDL for up to 30 years of repayment, low interest rate, no payments or interest for the first 12 months, and a maximum loan amount of $2 million unless the business is a major source of employment. EIDLs are only open for businesses, not for individuals, or renters, or individuals that have personal property. EIDLs can only be used to help recover the business, not to replace lost revenue, lost profits, or fund a business expansion, but to recover the business to the condition that it was before the disaster. Next slide, please. So the criteria for SBA direct disaster loans approval is as shown here. Keep in mind that we work for the regular SBA district offices, and the product that we have for access to capital is loan guarantees. So whenever there's a disaster, the SBA disaster team has been authorized by the U.S. Congress to do direct lending. So they have a checkbook, and they have a set amount of dollars that has been reserved by the Congress so that they can do loans to individuals impacted by the disaster. Damaged property must be located in a declared area, so the disaster declaration is critical, and you will use it to complete the application. The assigned SBA disaster loan officer will look at the cash flow and the credit history of the borrower and or the business. Hint, hint, the minimum credit score for you to be considered by the SBA as credit worthy is around 570 if you're wondering. Your application needs to demonstrate that you will be able to repay all loans, not just the disaster loans. Loans over $50,000 require collateral. Not having collateral will not lead to a denial, but you will have to offer something of value to the SBA if you need more than $50,000, because the SBA needs to, even though it's a disaster loan, this is still public money, and the government needs to minimize the risk of default. So the first $50,000 are based on your signature, your credit score. And if you're satisfied with $50,000, you don't need to take any more money if you don't need it or you don't want it. And if you suffer both physical and economic injury as a business, you can receive $50,000 unsecured for each type of loan. So in theory, you can receive up to $100,000. But remember, this is not a loan. This is not a grant. This is a loan that will need to be repaid. This is not a gift, which is a common mistake that many people make. Next slide, please.
Okay. Do you want me to take it over from here?
Sure, sure.
Okay, awesome. So documentation, let's talk a little bit about what you're going to need in order to apply for a loan, whether you're applying online or whether you're visiting one of our local, our actual facilities. And so whether it's online or in person, it's the same information that you're going to need. You are going to need to prove that you reside where the business or that you reside or that your business is located in an impacted area. Ed had showed you those two different areas. And so if it's for physical, you need to kind of be on the first top of that paragraph. And if it's for idle, it can be on either, right? And so after and by being able to prove you'll need your driver's license and or a passport and or a green card. Okay, you'll also need to share what is your social security information as well as an EIN if it's for a business, that tax ID number. Okay, and if there are multiple business owners, you will need the social security for all of the owners, because remember, this is a loan and you as a business owner will all need to sign an SBA note to approve that loan. So we will need all of that information. So it's not that each owner applies differently. It's collaboratively. It's per entity. Okay. You also will need to provide current financial information. And some of that documentation can include an income, account balances, monthly expenses. You also will need to provide a most recent federal tax return. And so do know that unfortunately, if you're past due and you're delinquent in paying your taxes, you can be denied because the federal government will feel that potentially you're not satisfying your federal obligations, okay? They will also ask you, excuse me, about your insurance information. And so, a few slides ago, I think Ed had mentioned about, having all that, being ready for a storm and having all that information. So you will need to, go into a little bag that Ed recommended that you prepare to include some of that insurance information. Now, you do not have to wait to get approved from your insurance, but they will ask you about that information so that the SBA can communicate directly with the insurance and any a settlement if it's needed down kind of the line. Okay. So
Can I say something there?
absolutely, go ahead, Ed.
So if you had a prior disaster loan and the loan had a condition that you needed to have hazard insurance and you decided that to stop paying for the hazard insurance or flood insurance,
Oh, good point.
unfortunately, when you apply and you're hit by another disaster, the SBA may decide that you're not eligible because you did not meet the conditions of the first loan.
Great point. Thank you. Thanks, Ed, for that. All right, so here we're gonna go ahead and talk about how you can apply online. So if you guys can see, you can visit lending.sba.gov. You can also go to sba.gov/disaster. There's a couple ways to actually get you into the same portal for the application process. And you would click on the disaster, determine your eligibility. And then it would take you to a next page, and then you would select your state and your county. This is going to make sure that you are you do qualify for that disaster declaration in order to make that loan request. What I would also suggest that one pager that Ed had talked about that we showed for Helene and Milton, and they looked very much the same, and they had the counties, that you have that to make sure that you can read all the information of the different loan and all the is basically in detail. You can read that so you can have it for your records. Then after you click your state and your county, okay, it would take you to the application page, and there you would start inputting all of that information. I don't know, Ed, if you wanted to say anything additionally about this, because I know sometimes it can be a little bit tricky, because there's different entities that kind of come up with the declarations. I would suggest that you choose the most recent one, because there's always been changes. What I mean is that sometimes additional counties, by now all the counties that have been added will be added. This is more so when it's closer to, a couple days out of a disaster. That you always make sure that you're choosing the most recent declaration, so make sure that your county is included.
I agree, Eileen. What I have done in the past is that when I enter the county and state, and I see the declarations that are available, and I click on a particular declaration, I download all those documents to my device or my computer so that I can use them for reference in the future.
Okay, great tip. Thanks for that. Yes. All right, and so if you're applying online, just a couple tips that we have learned in the past. So your legal name should be the name that is shown on your ID documentations. For example, Jose Ramos goes by Ed, right? So he wouldn't apply as Ed Ramos. He would apply as it shows directly, on his actual ID and documentations. For individuals from Puerto Rico, your documentations may show both of the parents' names, right? So you may want to use one. Please use a name that matches the documentation, because sometimes a computer, it's not a human, it'll get confused. And so when we pull your IRS transcripts, and that's really the name that you want to be using, the same one that you use to file your IRS transcripts, the system, if there is anything that is different, it may not pull that information. And we definitely saw that in the past. If your business name is, Brothers Inc., then you make sure that you have exactly Inc., like I said, as you put it when you file your IRS in your transcripts. Um, your IRS, yeah, at the end of the year. So, make sure also that if you get stuck, okay, if for whatever reason, that you don't create another application. We would ask that you call that 800 number that Ed had mentioned earlier, that 800-659-2955. And when I stop presenting, I can put that number on the chat as well as some of the other information, and ask for assistance. Multiple login attempts and multiple applications will cause your application to be denied. It comes up as if it was potentially, um, you know, um, it looks at to the system like if it's something as fraud, right? And so it'll automatically jam up the system, and you do not want to have your application placed on hold. Okay, so you call that 800 number for whatever reason you got stuck or something happens to the application. If you need a password reset, okay, you also will need to prove that you are who you are, right? We don't want somebody coming in and stealing your identity and changing your password. So you will need to potentially, upload or send some information such as photo IDs, and screenshots of whatever happening in the portal. So just kind of tips of keeping that in mind. Again, as I mentioned, one application, multiple owners do not get an application per owner. It is for the entity, for the business, okay? So it's one. And then also the other thing that I'll mention is that, that you monitor your portal, as the application is kind of going through the process, you will see that they kind of move pretty quickly, and they will contact you via email, or even they will call you on your phone in a timely manner. Make sure that you're checking your portal and that it's not going to your spam. Don't wait, like, once you get that email or that request, you want to kind of answer them within 24 to 48 hours. The sooner you have the information, the better. This will allow for your loan to continue to move along. What happens is that if they don't hear back from you, let's say in 2 weeks or 3, they can withdraw your consideration. And so you will have to kind of reinstate and kind of put it back in the queue. So it's super important that you're making sure that we're not in spam, and that we're getting the answers and to the questions that we're asking within 5 days or less. Definitely we want to help you, to not delay your process, because you need to get your business and your home back to whole. All right, so SBA, we have a lot of resources. No, oops, so sorry. Hold on, let's make sure it goes in the center. There we go. Let me put this one. Um, sorry, sorry about that. Also managing the chat here. So we have a lot of resources that are paid. Your taxpayer dollars already pay for our resources, and so those are the SBDCs, the scores, the women business centers, or the veterans business centers, as also our district offices. So, all you have to do is really use Google and Google
Yeah.
local assistance. You can also do sba.gov/local assistance, enter your zip code, and you're going to find the SBA resource parcel that is closest to you. Also, remembering that not to forget our recovery centers, okay? Some of them have since closed because we're a little bit out, but there are still that are open, and there are partners that are there, are from ODRNR that can help you also. Um,
Eileen,
okay. Yes, sir.
yeah, this is Louis DeRosa. I'm sorry I had such issues with the Wi-Fi in our building went down on us,
Okay, no
and
worries.
so I was unable. But thank you, and thank everyone for joining for today's event.
We have awesome. We're almost done with our presentation, about 10 more slides, and then we can definitely address the group.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so here is again a super duper important. If there's one takeaway, like Ed had said earlier, is make sure that you have this customer service. They are your friend. 800-659-2955. There's a field operations center that covers the eastern portion of the US located in Atlanta. And so, whenever there's a disaster, this is the number that is consistent for SBA 1-800-659-2955. We SBA does hire a lot of temporary employees, and so to mobilize and to provide, service to different, impacted individuals. And there are bilingual, so there's English, there's Spanish, and there's also, other languages that are spoken. So that would be, and when you call, you can identify whatever languages that you want to conduct that conversation in. Um, and so, any of the follow-ups are done electronically through our loan portal and through customer service. So just make sure that you have all of this content and information. Okay. So really, these slides that we're showing now we talked about some of our different recovery sites that we have. The website has not been updated since December of 2024. So what I would recommend that, that you call. There is also a website that I'm going to, now when I stop sharing, that I will put on the chat. It's a portal that you can put your zip code, and it'll tell you which are the sites that are opened, whether it's a business recovery center, or whether it's a disaster recovery center. This is both for Helene. And then we have, you see this one was closing January 7th. And then whether it's for Milton and or Helene, and our districts are, I'm sorry, our disaster recovery center have the SBA and FEMA that are both there, plus other resources that are available. So if there's a site that is closest to you, definitely visiting in person is a great option. Okay. There's just more of the site information, and like I said, I will share our live website so that you can access that information as well. All
You want
right.
me to
Yep.
take this one? Yeah.
Yes, please. Go
So
ahead.
on the planning conversations for this particular webinar, the host asked me to identify common agencies and other organizations that get involved providing disaster assistance. So what I did is I got into my chat GPT and I did a search, and I found some of those organizations that are shown here in this slide here. So we have FEMA. FEMA is the National Response Framework and the major coordinating agency for the federal government, and they worked hand in hand with the SBA. So depending on the type of disaster declaration, whether it be a presidential declaration that opens FEMA individual assistance and SBA disaster lending, or an SBA declaration or governor requested declaration, there may be just FEMA or SBA or both on the ground. We also have the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration that they provide assistance, not only providing weather data before and during and after the disaster, but also they have a mission given to them by the Department of Commerce to provide disaster assistance to individuals that operate a fishery. They do fishing as a commercial endeavor, so they get assistance from the National Oceanographic Administration. The Army Corps of Engineers, they do provide flood control, emergency operations, temporary power, and public works, but they also work with FEMA, and they're the ones who hand out the blue tarps that people use to protect their homes when the roof was blown up by strong winds. The Centers for Disease Control, they also get involved because every time that there's a disaster, there may be public health issues, and they come up with a guidance, and they also have mobile deployment teams that go out to the sites to work with the local, state, and county public health officials. The Department of Health and Human Services, they also deploy emergency public health and medical assistance. I know I have a company here that they deploy shelters on behalf of Health and Human Services, and the shelters have medical equipment, X-ray equipment, et cetera, et cetera. And I recall during Hurricane Maria that one of those shelters was deployed to Vieques to provide temporary uh, assistance doing X-rays, and there were uh, generators for those individuals that needed to operate their dialysis machines, et cetera, et cetera. The U.S. Coast Guard also gets involved, search and rescue operations, and they also remove some of those vessels that encroach maritime safety and security. The Department of Transportation, they also facilitate access because all that trucking equipment and supplies and all the remedial assistance needs to come in heavy trucks or trains or planes or boats. So the Department of Transportation is heavily involved in that particular regard. The United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, they do have a disaster assistance program for farmers and rural communities affected by hurricanes. I mentioned the Department of Commerce, and they have something called the Economic Development Administration, EDA, that they work with the state and counties, and they are able to find monies through either direct send off by the federal government or grants that they can apply to develop, let's say, for example, mitigation or ways to remediate existing problems. Our friends in the IRS, they also get involved. They participate in the Disaster Recovery Center. So when people go in person and they want to submit a loan application, there's usually a IRS person that has access to a computer, and they can pull the transcripts. But they also have an exemption that or delay that they give to individuals that allows them for additional time to file their individual and business taxes, like the taxes for us in Florida that usually are done to be done by April 15th. Now we have extra time until May 30th. So they gave us an additional 45 days to gather our documentation and be able to enjoy paying our taxes. The American Red Cross, they have, as a nonprofit organization that has been around for a long time, they work closely with FEMA, and they provide emergency shelter, food, and emotional support. They may have monies for grants, so they can do direct grants, but those are not federal dollars. Those are donations that people make to the Red Cross. The state of Florida has two programs that are significant and that individuals need to be aware. If you own a business and you have physical and economic damage, you may be able to apply for the Emergency Bridge Loan Program that is managed by the Florida Department of Commerce, and they use the Florida Small Business Development Center, SBDC, as their partner. So if you are in need of financial assistance, these are temporary loans up to $50,000. The SBDC may be able to work with you, but the SBDC, SCORE, and BBOC, women business centers that Arlene mentioned before, they can also help you recover in a sense that you may need to recreate your financial records to be able to apply for a loan, and they can provide that assistance free of charge to you. And the state also has the disaster unemployment assistance. This is something that was widely used by individuals during the pandemic unemployment assistance. So they do have a similar program for the disaster type scenario. Next slide. So if you want to learn more about disaster mitigation loans and how to protect your property, we can offer virtual and face-to-face training sessions that you can use the SBA.gov events that you will see in the next slide. But this is a way that you can reach out to us. You can call the district offices, or you can email us. You can find us on LinkedIn. and or you can do a lot of things using social media, and the QR codes will get you connected to our resources for North Florida and South Florida. Eileen, you want to say something more about this?
No, that is great. Thanks so much, Ed. A lot of this information that we've been showing is also on the chat, so you can use those hyperlinks. Whether it's connecting with us on social media or and Ed talked about the Florida Bridge loan. So make sure that you just check out that chat and that you subscribe. Both of these QR codes leads us to our webpage, to our South, whether it's South Florida or North Florida. And when you subscribe to our newsletters, you will get a weekly reminder of different webinars that are coming in and our events that are coming up. So definitely it's great information. We do not bombard you with 1,000 emails, so do know. I think we're very cognizant that business owners are busy, and so the information that we put out is relevant to help you guys grow and get to that next level that everyone is seeking for.
Thank you. And we mentioned district events. So this particular page here shows the location where you can find those events, sba.gov/events. And we are now engaged into the sessions to explain what the SBA mitigation program involves. So that's something that may be of interest to the individuals that are in the call today, because you can get up to 20% for mitigation coverage on your physical disaster loans. But this is something that can help you prepare and be aware. The counties and the state, they may have additional monies that comes from the federal government, but SBA is trying to do our part by sharing information to ensure that everybody is up to speed on the programs and services that are available to them. Next slide. So you want to open the line for questions. I want to thank you for listening to this message. We appreciate your attendance, and we're standing by to take any questions. I want to thank Luis and the staff of the Puerto Rican Summit, Dynamic CDC, for this opportunity for us to address. I believe Eileen may have other information to share, and I'm looking forward to see all of you.
Yeah, I'm
Yes,
going to go
sir.
ahead and yield the floor first to the Puerto Rico so that they can speak to the members, and then I'll share a little bit about Are You Lender Ready, and about our Thrive program that is about to start up. We're accepting applications, but I'll go ahead and yield the floor to Luis.
Thank you, Eileen. First, let me just say thank you to Eileen Fernandez, who's the outreach and marketing specialist for SBA based out of South Florida. And as well, I want to also thank Jose Ed Ramos, Senior Manager, SBA, based in North Florida, to collaborate. This is a collaboration that we have, and Eileen and Ramos have helped out in the past putting this together, and has been brought to you in collaboration with the Puerto Rican Summit, which is scheduled for May 21st through the 23rd to be held in Orlando, Florida. And of course, we're going to have another summit, sort of a mini summit in Miami in October. And this collaboration is a SAM agreement with SBA to provide this information free of charge to those who are interested in helping their situation in terms of a disaster. And I just wanted to thank all those that came on board, and of course apologize because we had a Wi-Fi glitch in our building and I couldn't log on. So I ask for your forgiveness on that. But I think Eileen is going to talk about something which is very important that we're getting ready to prepare to start a campaign. Are You Lender Ready? So that's a very good program. I think it's going to be really viable for those businesses that are looking to tap into the SBA service, the financial service, in conjunction with their bankers. And, like every business, you need a banker in your corner to make sure to protect your assets and your financial information. So thank you. Thank you to those who took time away from their schedule to be with us. Look forward to talking to you soon. We're going to start the Are You Lender Ready series, and leading into the summit in May, hopefully, God willing, in April. So we'll be between March and April, we look forward to be recontacting all those that are interested in expanding their business through financial information that you're going to be receiving free of charge. So thank you to all. Thank you, Eileen.
Thank you, guys. And so, yeah, Ed mentioned it, and um, it was also mentioned, are you lender ready? So essentially that is it's a 4-part series event, but it helps the small business prepare financially to speak to the lender. The first kind of part of that is it is a little bit of a lengthy event, but it's because we want to make sure that the businesses have everything that they need to go over in their business and their personal credit and how it affects the loan, right? And so we'll be talking a little bit about documents and and the financial needs and how to get those documents ready, so that you are lender ready and that you have a favorable decision. And so, in that, we ask that, and we're looking at later on in this year to be able to provide that, but, really we'll go over how businesses and personal credit and how it all kind of intertwines, and then we'll help you put together a pitch so that when you go speak to the lenders, you are ready to speak to that lender. And then we have a couple of follow-up meetings that just kind of, walk you through that process in case you have any hiccups or, any additional questions. So that was one thing that I wanted to mention. And the last thing that I also do want to mention is our Thrive program. SBA offers a Thrive. We call it the NBA of SBA. It is a 6-month program. It happens nationally. It happens in all Florida and all of our offices across the United States and our territories. And so it is a 6-month program. There are some criteria, and I'll be sharing that, with all of you, potentially in the email, in the follow-up email that we're going to send, as to when is the deadline, when it is that you can start applying, and what the requirements are for that process. So I want to thank you again all for your time. I don't know if anybody else has anything else that they would like to share, but that's what I got for South Florida.
Yeah. Ed Ramos.
Oh, no, I just wanted to say that I requested a cohort for emerging leaders, Thrive Emerging Leaders for Orlando. So if we have any Orlando businesses in the call, stay tuned if you want to participate in the program.
Okay, and that's something also that we can lead into to the summit and going into May. So again, thank you to everyone. If they have any other questions or any emails you want to send in for clarification, please feel free to do so. Thank you.
All right. I do not see any questions on the chat. So thanks again all for joining. And we hope that we will catch you guys very soon. Take care now and have a great weekend.
Thank you. Thank you, Eileen. Thank you for your service. And thank you, Ed, as well.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.